We've got a fun top 20 matchup in the Citrus Bowl between two teams that exceeded expectations this year. We've got number 15 South Carolina, who started 3-3 but then won their final 6 games, including that big road win at Clemson, taking on number 20 Illinois, also coming in at 9-3, starting 4-1 but winning 5 of their final 7 games to end the year. This is a very intriguing matchup. Going to be a lot of fun. One of the better bowl games on the slate, in my opinion. And today we're going to break it all down for you and share our official prediction. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. So glad you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, home to our holiday special, where we are giving you all of our college football bowl game spread picks, which are doing extremely well right now. All of our NFL picks for the rest of the year, fresh off an undefeated week in those NFL picks. So if you want to win big with us, if you want to take advantage of those expert picks and finish out the year strong and maybe carry over into next season, this is the place for you. You're never going to find picks like this, especially at that low of a price, anywhere else. So go sign up, become a member of our GE Nation today, down in the description below. So let's take a look. Again, 2 9-3 teams, 2 top 20 teams, 2 teams that finished the year hot. You couldn't ask for a better matchup. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. We'll start with South Carolina, the designated road team coming into this game. You know, the Gamecocks, again, it really exceeded expectations. They were competitive at times, Narrow loss to Alabama, narrow loss to LSU. You can't help but wonder if they'd won just one of those games. And they probably should have beaten LSU with that controversial call in the pick six. Can't help but wonder if they win one of those if they're not a playoff team right now. A lot of people pushing for Carolina to get into the playoff despite being 9-3. But this offense, man, 46 overall, averaging over 409 yards per game. They're extremely balanced, averaging nearly 220 passing yards per game, over 189 rushing yards per game. And for me, it all starts with their guy at quarterback, Lenore Sellers, who just kind of bursted onto the scene this year. We expected big things out of him, but I don't know if anybody expected to be this big. Over 2,200 yards, 17 passing touchdowns, also rushing for over 660 yards and 7 touchdowns. So 24 total touchdowns for Sellers, who has just been absolutely phenomenal and just got better and better and hotter as the year went on. So he is the guy in South Carolina. He's going to be the guy for a while now. Rocket Sanders, meanwhile, has declared for the NFL draft. As of the filming of this video, we're not sure if he's going to play in this game. I believe, again, at the filming of this video that he would, but jury's still out on that. He's rushed for over 880 yards and 11 touchdowns. If he plays in this game, it makes South Carolina that much more dangerous. Makes him that much more difficult to stop with a dual threat quarterback in Sellers, an electric runner in Sanders, who's not just great as a running back, but can also be a lethal pass threat as well. My only concern for South Carolina maybe coming into this game is their offensive line. They've allowed 39 sacks on the year. Illinois has 29 sacks defensively. So the biggest thing for the Gamecocks in this game, obviously block well enough to open up those run lanes. That wasn't an issue against Clemson, wasn't an issue down the stretch, but protect your quarterback. You've got to give him time to deliver in the pocket, of course, assuming he doesn't scramble and make a play on his own. Illinois, their offense, just mediocre. And that's kind of what you'd expect from a Brett Bielema-led team. And that's not a shot at Bielema. That's not a shot at Illinois. They're 9-3. They're clearly doing something right. But compared to South Carolina, they're a little bit lower. Illinois averaging 365 yards per game, 214 through the air, 151 on the ground. And that, to me, is a low. And again, the keyword, parenthetic quotation marks, low mark for Illinois, low for Brett Bielema to be only at 150 rushing yards per game, which is by no means bad, but maybe not the standard he wants to be, a guy who wants to bully you up front on the offensive line, a guy who wants to run the ball a lot and run it effectively. Luke Altmaier has thrown for over 2,500 yards and 21 touchdowns this year, just 5 interceptions, so a quarterback that takes phenomenal care of the football. Great care of the football, but he is going to be without his number 1 wide receiver in Pat Bryant. Bryant had over 980 yards and 10 touchdowns on the year. So you've got a guy who takes great care of the ball. You've got an offense that's throwing the ball a little bit more than they maybe have in the past because they've got a very capable quarterback to do so, but now going to be without their number 1 guy. So outside of Zachary Franklin, who's their number 2 receiver, who's going to step up in the pass-catching core for Illinois? You're down your number 1 guy. You've got your number 2 guy. Who's going to step up outside of them? The question I have after that is, can they get more out of the ground game? In Illinois' 3 losses this year, they were held to 132 rushing yards or less in every single one of them, and they never eclipsed over 230 passing yards in those 3 losses. So what they figured out, the teams that beat Illinois, teams like Penn State and Oregon, I believe it was Minnesota as well, they figured out if you can slow down the pass and force Luke Altmaier to throw, or slow down the run and force Luke Altmaier to throw, you might be in good shape. That's what they did. They were able to win those games. So Illinois has got to find a way to, maintain some sort of semblance of balance and get the ground game going. As we all know, if you get the ground game going, it opens up the pass, and that's exactly what they're going to need to do. South Carolina defensively, they've got themselves a handful and trying to do that. They're going to have to find a way to make that happen. But despite being nearly at full strength, they are going to be without their best defensive player, one of the best defensive players in the country, defensive end Kyle Kennard, who had 11.5 sacks on the year. So he will not be playing in this game. But guys like Nick Emenwari, Jalen Kilgore, guys like that, at the timing of this video, are expected to play. And they anchor a very strong defense that's 14th overall in the entire country, allowing just 313 yards per game and only allowing 106 rushing yards per game. So that's a key number there. We said you got to stop the run. South Carolina has done a fantastic job of stopping the run all year long. In their final 6 games, we talked about South Carolina starting off 3-3, but then getting hot, winning those final 6, beating teams like Texas A&M and Clemson. In their final 6 games, only one team eclipsed 20 points on South Carolina, and that was Missouri. That wild back-and-forth game against the Tigers that the Gamecocks won in the final seconds, 34-30. Outside of Missouri, no other team in those final 6 games eclipsed 20 points on the Gamecocks. They held Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Clemson, all to 20 points or less. They have 40 sacks on the year, so they've got a pretty dominant pass rush. They have forced 22 turnovers on the year, and that's kind of the biggest key once again. Defensively, if you bottle up that run game and force Luke Altmaier to deliver, you're going up against a pretty solid secondary that the Gamecocks have. He only has 5 interceptions. If you can force at least one off of him and convert, I like your odds a lot to go out and win this game. So the recipe is simple for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks. The question is, can they deliver? Can they do it? Illinois, on the other hand, typically a fairly strong defense. This year, kind of middle of the pack once again. 71st overall, allowing just 372 yards per game. That's 222 through the air, but 150 on the ground. And that's the major concern, right? South Carolina's rushing defense is pretty dang good. Illinois has been suspect throughout the year, right? Over 150 rushing yards per game allowed per game. And as we mentioned, South Carolina's got a pretty dang good running game and a dangerous dual threat quarterback at their disposal. If you go back in a deeper dive, you look at the Illinois losses. They've lost 3 games. They allowed at least 148 rushing yards in all 3 and allowed over 225 in 2 of them to Penn State and Oregon. So they allowed over 148 rushing yards in every game they lost this year. They allowed over 225 rushing yards in 2 of the 3 games they lost this year. That's a concern going up against such a strong South Carolina running game and such a strong dual threat quarterback in Lenore Sellers. So what the Fighting Illini have to do in this game is force Lenore Sellers to throw. They've got to find a way to keep him in the pocket. Don't allow him to escape. Don't allow him to use his legs to scramble and extend plays and pick up first downs. But also, additionally, make sure that South Carolina doesn't torch you on the ground, just like they've done to multiple opponents over this final half of the season. So I think, to me, a bit of a taller task is up for Illinois' defense than that of South Carolina's. But regardless, this is going to be a fun game. Not too many opt-outs and too many big changes on the roster for either of these teams. Yeah, we've got a few. There are a few for both, but nothing too dire or nothing too drastic like we've seen in some of these other bowl games we've talked about. This is a game between 2 teams that are in the top 20, 2 teams that deserve to be here, that have played phenomenal football down the stretch, 2 coaches that I have a tremendous amount of respect for in Shane Beamer and Brett Bielema. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I got to go with South Carolina. This is one of the hottest teams in all of college football right now. So hot that some people, despite being at 9-3, were pushing for the Gamecocks to slip into the college football playoff. They wanted them in there as the 11 seed or the 12 seed. I know Gamecock fans have to be sick knowing that even though they beat Clemson, Clemson still got into the playoff because they ultimately won the ACC. But South Carolina is playing phenomenal football right now. I just don't think Illinois, number 1, offensively can keep up with them. And number 2, I'm not sure Illinois' rushing defense can contain this South Carolina rushing offense. So give me the Gamecocks to win this game. They're going to take care of business. They're going to clinch their first 10-win season since 2013. And expectations will be very high for Shane Beamer and his squad entering 2025, one where they actually could contend for the college football playoff. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com. That includes our expert picks, that holiday special there for you to take advantage of and become a member of our team today and start winning big with us today. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.